Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I'm doing a little bit of last minute track prep here in the garage today, getting ready for the August 30th and 31st day at the Ridge with On-Grid. I got the Civic right behind me, my 1993 LSVTEC swapped Civic Coupe. Just a little bit of finishing up on the catch can setup and putting a honed anti-fuel starve baffle, I guess you would call it, in the fuel tank. So let's take a look at the parts that we got here. Thank you once again to Honed for sponsoring this video, for sponsoring the channel. I'll flip the camera around really quick and we'll take a look at the parts that I got. So here we have the anti-slosh fuel return line from Honed Developments. And right here we have a PCV adapter for D&B series, both made by Honed Developments. Great company. Check them out. They make some awesome products for Golden Era Hondas, and even some newer stuff too, like the Fit. So as you know, my car has had a lot of fuel starve issues on track, just because I run the fuel pretty low, and around a high G corner, it's usually going left, and then once you step on the gas, there's nothing there because the fuel can't make it up to the engine. And that is because the fuel return just kind of dumps out at the top of the hat. There's not a pipe that brings it all the way down to the bottom where the fuel pickup is. So that's the problem this product aims to solve. So we're gonna get this guy in first, and then second off, we're gonna go over the PCV valve. I guess it's a PCV valve delete, and see the catch can setup that I have and get it all set up for the track day. The first part of installing this anti-fuel surge baffle is to access the fuel pump. Pretty easy in my car since there's no rear interior. The roll bar is going to make it a little bit difficult, but it's no big deal. So on an EG Civic, we have this big plate right here, and that's where the fuel pump and the fuel sending unit is housed. There are 4 Phillips head screws holding it in, so I'm going to grab a screw gun, knock those guys out, and I'll show you guys what's underneath. So once you get those 4 Phillips head screws removed, you can pick up the cover, kind of set it off to the side. This is your fuel pump housing. This is the fuel level sensor. I've been in here a couple times. I replaced the sensor recently just because fuel sloshes around quite a bit and the gauge wasn't accurate. I tried to fix it, didn't really work out, but it is what it is. It's a 90s Honda. I don't really expect perfection out of this car, but under these rubber boots are your 2 plugs. The 2-pin plug is for the fuel pump. I'm going to disconnect that, set it off to the side. The 3-pin plug is for your fuel level sensor. Now that these guys are unplugged, just scoot them off to the side and we'll get into removing this fuel pump housing. The first step to getting the fuel pump housing out is to disconnect the fuel lines. There's a 17mm banjo bolt right here. Uses a 12mm crush washer. I'm going to make sure that I have some new ones to replace it with when I put it back together. And there's a hose clamp for the 1/4-inch fuel return line. I have these 45-degree pliers that I can use to reach in and grab all 3 of the prongs of the clamp and scoot it back, just like that. And then this will probably take me 2 hands or to use the pliers, but I'm going to get in there and pull that hose forward and it should come right off. Now that the return hose is off, I'm going to get a 17mm socket or a ratchet and just crack this guy loose. Should be able to hand thread it out the rest of the way. Gas might spray out, it might not, we'll see. Looks like we're good since I pulled the return first and the fuel system depressurized. But remember, there is a crush washer on each side of this banjo bolt. I'm going to take the bolt out if I can with one hand and set it off to the side so I don't lose any pieces. Now that both the fuel lines are off, I'm going to reach in with a 10mm on a gun, pop the 6 bolts out, and I should be able to lift the whole fuel pump housing out of the car. Now that those 6 bolts are loose, I should be able to lift up on the fuel pump. You kind of got to move it around a little bit to be able to get it free. Might be a 2-handed job, so I'll catch you guys back once I have this guy out of the car. So now that the fuel pump's on the bench, I'm going to cut this zip tie right here. This was just holding the pump in place previously. I replaced the pump on this car when I did the swap last winter. So now that we have that, The instructions say to remove the pump. I think that I'm going to try and sneak around that by taking the pump and just moving it outwards and then slipping the fitting in. You do have to bend down these tabs here, so we'll see how it goes. Might be able to do it, might not. I'm going to set up a time lapse so you can watch me struggle a little bit, see if I can get this done. So as you can see in the time lapse, I did end up having to take off the filter screen. Don't lose this little lock nut that goes right here. I usually use a 1/4-inch socket to push it back onto the tab at the bottom of the pump right here. I have the little holder piece for the tube facing towards me. You can see the return is right here. That's where this hose goes into the return. So I'm gonna get this nut pushed back on to the end of the pump, try and get it situated a little bit better, bend these tabs back, and then I'll show you how to install the hose. So I pushed the little lock nut on, little tiny socket and extension. Got the fuel pump all set up where it needs to be. Now I'm going to take my little piece of flexible hose, turn this so you can see it a little bit better. The way that it works is it inserts into the fuel return right here, and then you point the hose straight down into the sock. So it's going to be returning the fuel directly into the pickup of the pump. So it means less likely to starve the fuel around cornering and on high G acceleration. So let me get this all oriented and I'll see, and you guys will see what it looks like when I'm finished. So I just got the return hose pressed into the stock return area of the fuel pump hanger. It was kind of a pain in the ass, not gonna lie. The trick that I used was I sprayed some silicone spray right here where it goes in, and I took a 1/4 drive extension. I used it to twist the little hose into the return line. That worked pretty all right. Just make sure you clean the silicone spray off. I'm not really sure if that's good to be in your fuel tank. So I'm gonna brake clean this whole thing down, snap the fuel line in right here, and we should be good to reinstall it in the car. So obviously, install in the car is the reverse of the removal, but just make sure that when you put the fuel pump in, it goes into that little tray right there. That is the fuel pickup point for the tank. So I'm gonna fish this guy in here, button it all up, check for leaks, and then make sure the car still starts. So I just got the whole fuel system all buttoned back up. Everything should be all right, but just in case, I always like to check and make sure the pump still primes. We have no leaks, nothing weird's going on. So let's turn the key forward, make sure she doesn't leak. Prime the pump a couple times, make sure she's in neutral, and let's give her a start. Now that I've confirmed that everything works correctly, I'm going to go ahead and put this cover over the top of the pump and the sending unit, get her all buttoned down, and we should be good to go. So that was about it for the anti-slosh return system from HONED Developments. Pretty simple install. The hardest part was just getting that return tube to stick into the factory one off the hanger. Once I found a trick to it, it wasn't too bad, but you may not be able to see it, but hopefully it makes a big difference, especially around corners like the Thumb at the Ridge and 3B at Pacific Raceways. That's the normal spot where I fuel starve when the car is pretty low on fuel. I'm excited to go out there and test it on the 30th and 31st at the Ridge. I'll keep you guys posted on how I like it. I'm sure it'll be great. Hopefully it'll be a big difference and not just something small. But other than that, that's going to be it for that install. So let's move on to the HONED Developments PCV Kit for D and B Series. So as you know, if you guys have watched the channel previously, at a lot of the track days, I've had issues with the catch can filling up pretty quickly under a 20-minute session. It was a pretty small catch can. I actually have it sitting right there. I'm done with this thing. Put some pretty big upgrades onto the car as far as the oiling system goes, or more so the PCV system. But I got a valve cover. This was actually the yellow cover that I originally was going to run on the engine. I sent it off to Charlie Moa, and he put a CNC baffle inside, as well as welded 2 AN bungs right there on the front to aid with some crankcase ventilation. and I put a massive catch can back here with an excess power S680 battery. Save a little bit of weight. Maybe I'm at net zero now that I put this catch can in. It is steel. But there's one more thing that I need to finish up with this PCV system. So previously, the PCV system ran from this little stock breather tube on the valve cover and the PCV valve over to the catch can that was in this area. I've decided to upgrade to a larger line. I have a 10AN line right here with a 5/8 inner diameter, and this HONED Developments PCV kit is going to make the block vent the same size as the 10AN line. So it's going to be a 5/8 hose, not an AN line, which is actually going to be pretty nice to be able to make it easier to work on. Don't have to worry about buying fittings or anything like that. So let's go over the product and talk about the reasoning for why I'm installing it. So here she is, this little guy right here. This end snaps into your black box down on the bottom of your block if you have one. If you don't have one, there are other solutions, but I think that this was the most beneficial to my situation. When your car spends a lot of time at high RPMs, sometimes it'll generate excess crankcase pressure, and with the small diameter of the PCV valve and hoses, it can often get blocked up by oil, and then the crankcase pressure will just push all the oil into the catch can, and I hope that that was what was happening with mine. No way to find out until I install this stuff and see if it makes a difference, but with the larger diameter hose and no check valve inside, there shouldn't be any restriction that can be blocked up by oil, and hopefully it'll help out quite a bit with my issue of filling the catch can. That and having a larger reservoir to catch the crankcase vapors should be beneficial. So to get started, since I've already done a lot of this catch can install off camera, so I was pretty excited that it showed up, I'm going to uninstall these fittings that I put right here and pull the PCV valve out and the hose. It's going to be really hard for you guys to see how the black box works on these cars, but I'll throw a picture up and I'll point to which fitting we're going to be replacing with the HONED Developments part. Normally on these things, these hoses that hold the PCV valve up just break as soon as you touch them. Thankfully, these are all new. Hopefully it won't be too big of a deal to get it out of there. I'm going to reach my mitts down in there, see if I can grab this thing out of here, and we'll catch up with you once I've done that. So here are all the parts that I removed from my PCV system. This is the fitting that comes up out of the black box and houses the PCV valve at the top. And then this is just the hose that I ran from the PCV valve to the top of the catch can. So where this is gonna go is right here where this fitting was. I'm gonna get a little bit of grease on there, pop her in, and then I'll get a 5/8 hose, some clamps, and we'll clamp it up. Might be a little bit tricky to see way down in there. Hopefully you can. But there should be an open port on the PCV box that'll accept this fitting and run it up to the catch can. So here's the situation I got going now. I have the PCV delete hose clamped to a nice piece of silicone 5/8 hose. I wish I could tell you guys where to get this stuff. It's been forever since I bought this. It's been like 5 years. I bought a giant reel of it and I've just been working my way through it, but this is all I got left. So I'm gonna snake this guy down under the intake manifold, try and get it situated, and I'm gonna run it up to the catch can, and I'm gonna try and use either a 45 or a 90-degree push lock fitting to finish the job out. Being able to do this with the hose clamp is pretty nice. I left it up top just to make it a little bit easier to get to if I do need to remove it. We'll see how it goes. If everything goes well, I shouldn't have to remove it, but you never know. So I'm gonna try and fish this guy up under the intake into where it goes and plumb the box up and see how it comes out. So I'm sure it's gonna be really hard to see, of course, but I got the valve, the PCV valve delete in there. I actually used a super long extension to press down on it to push it in the hole. It's a nice tight fit. It's definitely not going anywhere, but it does make it installing it a little bit difficult. Not a huge deal though. Next step is to take this big coily mess and route it into the catch can, and we should be all set. And here she is all finished up. Just plumbed it into a 45 push lock fitting. I did put a hose clamp on it. Yes, I know you don't have to put a hose clamp on a push lock fitting, but I'm not a very trusting person when it comes to mechanical failures, so anything I can do to prevent one, that would be awesome. But pretty short hose run, just runs down right under there to the black box, and I think this is gonna work really well. I'm really excited to test this thing out this coming weekend at the Ridge. Hopefully my blow-by problems are a thing of the past. I'd like to be hopeful about that. I hope this video helped you guys install these two products. Give HONED Developments a look. They make a lot of great parts for a lot of really cool cars. 90s Hondas specifically. They have some Miata stuff, they have some newer car stuff, but really appreciate them for helping me out with these parts. Got some more stuff coming from them here soon. Stay tuned for that, but I think that's gonna be it for this video. I got a couple more things, boring fluid stuff to do off camera before the track day. So I'll see you guys there. Once again, thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time.